You see, Donald Jaquavius Trump. He got, that's what they call him, Donald Jaquavius Trump.
I saw that post.
But
the grill.
He almost got Larry Hoover all the way out. Well, he got him to a point to where he could have more leniency and mercy, man. So if y'all don't know who Larry Hoover is, Larry Hoover was the co-founder of the Gangster Disciples gang in Chicago, and back in the 70s, I want to say.
Okay.
And let's just look at this. I want to see what people are talking about since he committed Larry Hoover, because that was one of those ones that you never thought was going to happen. Even
he's been in jail his whole life.
When they let Big Meech out, that was one thing, but letting Larry Hoover out was a whole different thing. Whole life. So I want to do a couple things. We're gonna do just a little reading on that. We ain't gonna keep y'all too long, but I'm curious to see.
Well, actually, we're gonna start doing some longer video, guys. We are definitely switching a few things up over here.
We're going to see what happens.
Okay, so I think by now we all understand that Trump did not pardon Larry Hoover, but he commuted his sentence to 200 years instead of a life sentence. But we're like, what the fuck does that mean? Why would you do that? So Larry Hoover was being held at 88 Florence, which is a super max prison, meaning he was in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day.
Wow.
And has been for the past 30 years.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was also allowed only one 15-minute phone call a month.
What?
And absolutely no contact visit from family. However, you could do a screen visit. Well, thanks to Alice, Trump, and Charleston White, he will now be transferred to a medium security prison in Illinois, where he will be allowed contact visit with his family and 4 to 5 15-minute phone calls a day. He will also have contact with the general prison population, and he will be able to walk the compound.
Okay.
Before you fix your gnarly fingers to type out in my comment section, why would Trump pardon a gang member, a murderer? Please ask yourself why whomever was behind Biden's auto pen chose to pardon the people they pardoned.
Right.
Not only pardoned Hunter Biden, but they also pardoned James Biden, Frank Biden, Flu Fauci, and Biden, or whoever was behind that auto pen, also pardoned Biden's sister-in-laws.
Well, y'all see that? The auto pen scandal. That's a scandal in itself. So we're gonna go down. I just want to go through some clips and just see what other people talk about on TikTok about Hoover been out, because it's kind of been like those urban legends. Him kind of, and so let's see.
Larry Hoover, on God, it hit me. Born in Mississippi, November 30th, 1950.
That's
At 4, moved to
that copyrighted music. I'm sorry,
This
y'all.
breaking news, the attorney for Larry Hoover confirming that President Trump has commuted his sentence. Hoover is a former Chicago gang leader and the founder of the Gangster Disciples. He was serving a life sentence at a prison in Colorado. Hoover was convicted of murder in Chicago and then later convicted on several federal charges. He will still have to serve his sentence on state charges. The news just now coming out. We will have much more on this story as it continues to develop.
I've done my time. I paid my debt to society.
That was him.
That was Larry Hoover more than 3 decades ago.
decades
At that
ago.
time, the leader of
30
the Gangster
years.
Disciples and convicted murderer told our John Davis he had a lot of time to think about ways to stop the gang violence on the streets of Chicago.
One teenager don't like the other teenager because the way he wears his hat, because his ideology is different from his. A disciple don't like a vice lord. We all black people. It's no different.
At that time, Hoover, also known as King Larry, admitted being part of a fragile gang truce in the city and
That's when they-
organizing a protest over plans to close healthcare clinics in African-American neighborhoods. Ron Safer, the lead prosecutor in Hoover's federal trial, reacts to news Hoover's
Chicago has this term they like to use. They use some terms that they will always call. They'll put things on people's front name: King David, King Von, King Hoover. That's a Chicago term for Chicago. They put King in front of folks' name. On King such and such.
Interesting.
On Fulton Gray. On King such and such.
life sentence has been commuted by President Trump.
I was disappointed. I do not think that this is an appropriate end to the Larry Hoover story.
Why?
The federal part of it.
He did
Safer
good. He
says
did
Hoover
reform.
was
He
perhaps the
changed
most
everything
notorious criminal the state of Illinois has
in a
ever
positive
known.
way.
He was
Please.
convicted of running a continuing criminal enterprise that had approximately 30,000 members across 28 states, selling over $100 million worth of drugs in the state of Illinois alone each year. And he ran that entire operation with ruthless efficiency from prison, where he was serving a state sentence for double murder.
Safer also told us about Hoover being recorded, saying teenagers needed to sell drugs for his criminal organization. The recording was made a year after the gangster disciple leader was interviewed on CBS Chicago.
There was another tape where Larry Hoover said, "You have to share your drugs with these children." And I'm talking about 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, so that they can sell it and they can have something. And he said, make them know that with you, they are somebody.
What are you talking about, 40 years ago?
Without you, they are nobody.
Meantime, shortly after the commutation announcement, Hoover's son posted this picture on Instagram. That's a White House official holding a copy of the commutation.
Future pardons are.
Hoover's attorneys say they're thrilled he's going to be released from federal custody, but again, he still has a 200-year sentence to serve for his crimes.
Wow.
This the story of Larry Hoover on God It Hit Me. Born in Mississippi,
Larry, explain to them how Trump has freed him from the feds, but what's going on with the state?
Okay. Trump has freed my father from federal custody. But, as I told people plenty times before, it's been a dual jurisdiction. So now the state has the opportunity to go get him. And what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to reach out to Governor Pritzker to let him know that my father would be a blessing to this city. And he could also leave the city if he needs him to leave. But we dealing with Pritzker, and he can go into state custody. And all he has to do is strike his pen and say that we don't need this geriatric old man. He served his time. Like he's not worried about leading any type of gang organization or running the streets.
Yeah.
If he does anything for the streets, it would be telling the YNs that
to quit it.
You're gonna live the life that he lived if you don't change your life.
Right.
You be an asset and a blessing to this community. All the people that stuck on some other stuff, like your
way too old
is just
to be banging.
Kind of weak.
Yeah.
You're understanding the life, you're understanding the manhood, you're understanding the being a woman. We're not with that. We're all about peace and love. And we need Pritzker to understand that he will be a blessing to this community, and we want him to give this man a second chance. Pritzker believes in redemption and believe that he should be redeemed. Everybody else in this situation has been able to have redemption and have a second chance at life. And I would love to actually be able to hold my father. I'm close, but I'm not all the way there yet. I know it don't sound right, but I want to hug and kiss a man.
Where's Dad? Because he's never had a
hug and kiss their grandfather. My mother
never seen him out.
wants to hug and kiss her husband. Like,
oh, that's still her husband. Wow, 30 years since she held it out.
Life. This has nothing to do with any nonsense. We need for everybody to let Pritzker know that Larry Hoover will be a blessing to this community, an asset. No.
After 51 long years of the gangster disciples founder Larry Hoover being locked up, today President Trump decided to pardon him, but that doesn't mean he 100% coming home. Here's why. This whole thing has been in the making since 2018 when Kanye West and Drake publicly advocated for Hoover's release. Kanye even went to the White House and discussed the release of Larry with Trump, but with all that, nothing ever happened. Larry has been eligible for parole, and his last request was denied last year. He was serving 2 separate convictions. In 1973, he was convicted of by the state and got 200 years. But in 1997, he was convicted again, this time by the federal government for running the gangster disciples from behind bars. He was sentenced to 6 life sentences. Since Trump pardoned his federal sentence, he no longer has to serve time for the feds, but he still has to serve time for the state. The only way for him to come home is if he gets parole, or the governor of Illinois grants him clemency, which is a state-level pardon. I think the man has a few more years to live and should spend it with his family. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this. So nobody gonna tell me that they let Larry Hoover out of jail? Like, I ain't gonna lie, you can say what you want about Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has done some gangster stuff, to be exact. Like, the fact that he just let Larry Hoover out of jail says a lot about what he think about the community. Everybody always want to talk about Donald Trump in a bad type of way, but they don't never explain all the good things that he did. Now, what's really important is to see what kind of impact is Larry Hoover going to have. Like, I can't believe this. So nobody gonna tell me that
he's not completely out of he's not out of jail completely.
Like, I ain't gonna lie, you can say what you want about Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has done some gangster stuff, to be exact. Like, the fact that he just let Larry Hoover out of jail says a lot about what.
Go to the next one.
Oh, that was good.
Presidential order has just shifted the future for a Chicago gang leader who ran one of the most powerful criminal networks in the country. President Trump has commuted Larry Hoover's federal life sentence. Hoover's son.
Did Donald Trump give a notorious gang leader a second chance at freedom? I'm gonna break down what happened, who he was, what's going to.
He started as a teenage gang member. He became America's most feared criminal. The Rise of Larry Hoover, Part 1. What if I told you one of the most feared men in America started as a teenage gang member on Chicago's South Side? From the streets of Inglewood to the halls of federal courtrooms, Larry Hoover's name echoed like a legend or a warning. Born in 1950, Hoover joined the Supreme Gangsters at just 13, but he didn't stay a foot soldier for long. By his early 20s, he had co-founded the Gangster Disciples, a criminal empire that expanded across states and controlled millions in illicit trade. Hoover wasn't just running a gang, he was building a system with ranks, rules, and political ambitions. Some called him a monster, others a revolutionary leader. He even claimed to have reformed, preaching peace and education from behind bars. But behind those prison walls, authorities say he never stopped calling the shots. Sentenced to 200 years, yet still holding power. How does a man in solitary confinement still influence the streets? And here's the twist. Decades later, his name would hit headlines again, this time tied to Kanye West, Drake, and a plea to Donald Trump. Is Larry Hoover a reformed icon, or just a ghost king still pulling strings?
Hey, so they say yesterday all the GDs was happy as hell. I'm seeing motherfuckers crying and shit, celebrations. I'm hearing motherfuckers play. They let the GDs in the door and all that shit. And you know what was funny? I'm over here dying laughing because they talking about Larry Hoover free, right? No, you dumb bitches, Larry Hoover is not free. You don't know the difference between commute and pardon with you overly dumb motherfuckers. First off, his sentence just been commuted. That means he left federal prison and he's going to state prison. The only thing Larry can do now is make phone calls, my boy. That motherfucker's still locked up. He in jail. So now y'all can get off this old GD cheerleading squad shit y'all doing. Look at these motherfuckers up here, bro. These motherfuckers up here looking like, give me a G. G. Give me a D. D. What that spell? Gay dude.
This story of Larry Hoover on God, it hit me.
So that's just some of the
commentary
of
pretty
TikTok.
much.
You know how it goes.
Well, I mean, I feel like, I've heard of him, but I haven't followed his story. Let me get a focus of the camera. You need to come up.
So uncomfortable. Come on, Chef. Okay.
So I feel like, it could be a possibility, and I do believe that there is reform in prison.
Absolutely.
It's going to be based on the individual solely.
Absolutely.
Who he connects with and what resources he has while he's there.
Who gonna want to still do some banging and some activity at 7 years old? Would he be that committed?
I mean,
to
please.
the death
No.
of put some work in at 70-something years old?
Oh, come on. 50 years in prison, that's like, wow. I mean, that's a lifetime.
He's still not going to get to see the sun, but he's going to at least be able to walk around in general population and make phone calls and do things like that. But
his son said if the governor was like, okay.
No, the son, S-U-N, not S-O-N. It's not going to be able to be free.
No, the son that was in the first clip said that all the governor had to say was this man has served his fair due time, and he could be able to, well, that was my understanding. He could be able to come home, and then he'd be able to actually physically touch his dad, not the visitation. That was just my understanding. If I'm wrong, put it in the comment section. Let me know if I misunderstood that. But I felt like that's what he said. And I was like, oh, it's all the governor has to do was say, okay, the man has served his time, which means he wouldn't have to serve the state time. He's 50 years in federal penitentiary, you know. But it's like the way the crime sounded was very, of course, what he was charged for. But 200 years?
That sounds insane.
That sounds like the mob type vibe. I mean, Griselda. Well, when we watched that documentary.
That's what they try to put him as, like.
But he, to me, I mean, what they explain, and correct me if I'm wrong, or put it in the comment section, you know, if you watch the documentary of Griselda, that lady was ruthless. She didn't care about families, kids. She killed everybody. And it didn't sound like him. They just said double it was supposed
homicide. To be the homicide, but he was on. They could only tie one to him that got him to 200 years.
And then the criminal enterprise, 30,000, you know, all that. But the number of bodies that Griselda had was vast compared to this man.
Well, no, that woman couldn't live on. She wouldn't have been able to live on this earth, being able to still walking.
True.
Even though she's gone,
but I'm just saying. So she probably would have. Now that sounds like a fair 200. I mean, never getting out ever again in life, based off that documentary we saw. Compared to, and I'm not trying to minimize the things that he did or his crimes at all, but I'm just saying, you know, I feel like reform is possible. So hopefully that. You know, he is who he says he is. He's gained some valuable resources within. He's made some changes, and he might have a possibility of coming home.
In the GD's folks, is that folk? Is folks GD?
I don't know what GD's is. Ask ChatGPT. I don't know.
What's that folk? Because I remember it was folk.
I don't know what a GD's is. Don't know. GDs stand for Gangster Disciples. Folks refers to the Folk Nation, a coalition of street gangs that originated in Chicago. Yes, GDs are part of the Folk Nation, so when someone says GDs are folk, they are referring to their affiliation under the Folk Nation Alliance. This is in contrast to Bloods and Vice Lords, who are traditionally aligned with the People Nation, the opposing alliance. I mean, I didn't even know this about the gang situation.
Me either.
All I know is red and blue.
That's it.
Colors.
But you don't really think about the Mexican gangs and the GDs and all that
that's
stuff.
All I know is those two colors. I know there's I've learned of some other gangs, but so far as what stick out to me the most are those two because they've been around the longest.
Hey, boy, you can have all that stuff, but yeah, I think the man is probably at this age some reform, unless somebody has otherwise. At that age, you just want to be able to spend some more time with them before you get out of here.
With your family, and I mean,
because your whole life you haven't had a life. You had a prison life, so the one time you got to live, you only got really.
So how old was he when he got locked up?
13.
13.
He's 73 now.
Wow, 13.
He didn't spend his entire life in jail. He's never going to see the outside. So his one life, the longest he had on the street was from a newborn to 13 years old.
So 13 is the double homicide, whatever they just said, is what got him incarcerated at 13.
Correct.
And what extended his sentence was the enterprise that he ran from behind bars.
Correct. That extended because he was still doing, from what it said, but he's still working on the back end.
Well, I believe in reform.
I believe that at that age, you want to be able to talk to your grandson, talk to your son more. Too bad you can't see him. And your son, I'm sure your son, because if he's in Chicago, your family will probably be up there all the time to be able to see you. I'm sure that you can have conjugal visits way more, versus being in federal lockdown when he couldn't even see the light of day or make phone calls for 15 minutes a month. So man, shout out to Trump.
He said wife, my mom, his wife.
Shout out to a woman that will give up with being with another man.
I mean,
that means she's been celibate for I don't know how long they've been married because he was 13 when he went out.
Oh, that's right.
They must have gotten married when
he was in.
So he must have had a son. Did she have him on a conjugal visit? Maybe
I don't know about that. I mean, I just learned recently about a story situation when you can, I guess, based off the sentence, they can have those visits in jail. I guess it was federal. Yeah, it was. So I didn't even know that you could do that.
A little spot you can go to and
yep, you can spend time. I didn't know that. But wow, I mean, I just hope, it is what it is.
You go in that room, regular come out with pregnant immediately.
Well,
but
based off the way they described it, he didn't have that. He only had one.
Nothing. It was zero.
Yeah,
it was like
in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day.
23 hours a day, and it was going to be like that for what? How many years there? How many years there? How many years in solitary prison?
I don't know. That's just absolutely
how many
insane.
years you would get going to state? But I don't know. But shout out to Trump. He also freed NBA YoungBoy. NBA YoungBoy is a person that's already out and successful, and he's living his life. But he don't have to. I need to find out the details, but I'm assuming that he don't have to go and do any more time. He probably have to do minimal bail or any now that Trump has spared him.
I'm gonna look that up because I didn't know Trump had done that. So I'm definitely gonna
look it up.
Look him for that because I've been praying for that young man to get himself in order.
So shout out, man. All right, man. We're gonna end this video. We're gonna see y'all on the next one. Donald Jaquavis Trump out there freeing everybody. I'll see you on the next one. Ain't no racism with Trump.
My God.